Chris, what is our fifth main topic today?
Topic number 5 today. From Reboot Flash. The day after the bar incident, Ezra Miller is having a restraining order filed against him. He was staying with a couple and apparently broke into their bedroom, stole their wallets, then threatened to kill them. WB has to boot him. This is unacceptable. I feel horrible for everyone else who worked on the Flash movie, but this is insane. Thoughts?
All right, thanks for writing that in, Reboot Flash. All right. So, unfortunately, yesterday on the John Campea Show, we had to talk about an incident involving Ezra Miller. That, once again, being in the news for all the wrong reasons. He was at some sort of a club establishment in Hawaii, where apparently he got drunk, did not enjoy the karaoke that a young woman was singing on stage, was yelling obscenities at her, and then physically ran up on stage and physically pulled the microphone out of her hand. Then when he was being criticized by a dude playing darts, Ezra Miller then went and lunged at this individual, continued to be berating, insulting, uttering threats. The bar staff tried to calm him down. He wouldn't calm down. Eventually they had to call the police, and he got arrested. And if that all sounds familiar, it's because this has all happened before. A single incident has turned into a pattern of behavior. But apparently the story got much, much worse when the next day he did something even worse. Now, this is being relayed. We're getting this over from CBR, and this is coming from an actual police report. But here's the story. And apparently this all happened the day after he got arrested. An unnamed couple from Hilo, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Hilo, Hawaii, recently filed a restraining order against the Flash star Ezra Miller after the actor allegedly threatened them and stole from them. And this is kind of disturbing. The couple has issued a petition for a temporary restraining order claiming that the actor who was staying with them threatened to kill them and stole from them. According to the court document, Miller allegedly burst into the couple's bedroom and is quoted as saying, "I will bury you and your slut wife." The order also states Ezra Miller is famous and wealthy. This makes access to weapons much easier, as well as sending associates to harass the couple. Along with a wallet, and the actor reportedly took social security cards, passport, driver's license, and bank cards. And at the time of the writing, these items have not been returned to the couple. And now, apparently, this couple met Ezra a week earlier. I think it was about a week earlier in Hawaii at some kind of market. Apparently, they hit it off and they offered him a place to stay. Why Ezra Miller needed a place to stay, little bit beyond me. But, Ann and I were talking about this. If we had bumped into Hugh Jackman at the farmer's market, and he said, "I'm just in town. I haven't got a hotel yet." And he said, "You mind if I crash with you?" We would have, of course, said, "Sure, Hugh Jackman, come on and stay with us." So that's apparently what happened. And then after the incident, after that, by the way, according to the story, this is the couple that bailed him out of jail. That Ezra was bailed out of jail by this couple. So there's that. Now, what's interesting in this court document is one of the things that's being called for here is they're asking for an order and injunction not to exceed a period of 3 years, enjoining respondents, that's of course Ezra, and any other persons acting on Ezra's behalf from committing those acts set forth in the paragraph. Also, what this is a petition for is an order prohibiting Ezra Miller from owning or possessing firearms and or ammunition. So if this gets granted, Ezra will not be allowed to possess, own firearms, ammunition of anything sort of thing like this, which obviously right now seems like a pretty good idea. We talked about this yesterday, but I think it bears repeating. Some people gave me shit a couple years ago for making such a big deal out of what Ezra Miller did in that first incident, and the fact that Warner Brothers did nothing about it. And by nothing, I mean they adopted, the company policy was, shh, don't talk about it. Don't mention it. We're going to jingle some shiny keys of other superhero movie news in front of the audience, and the audience is so dumb, they'll be distracted. We won't ever have to deal with this. Shh. And I said, that them taking that approach is going to have long-term consequences. Because what they told Ezra Miller and anybody else in Hollywood is that you are above the rules. If you are famous enough and you are talented enough, rules don't apply to you. You're good, and we'll cover you. We got your back. That's what they were saying. And Ezra Miller took that to heart because their behavior has not changed in the least. And if you're wondering, John, are you saying there's actually a direct connection between this new incident and the fact that Warner Brothers didn't do anything about it before? Fuck yes, I'm saying that. Because if Warner Brothers had laid down the law with Ezra Miller, made him make a public statement of apology, actually enforced some consequences on him, I don't think this would have been happening today. But that's neither here nor there. I said yesterday that when we look at Ezra, we are seeing that they no longer just have an incident. What we're seeing with Ezra is that they have a pattern of behavior. This is a pattern of behavior. And while we said about the Will Smith situation, and I still stand by this, that yes, Will Smith, there needs to be discipline and act. Yes, something has to be done, but we should never judge somebody by their worst moment. And that, with Will Smith, this is not a pattern of behavior for Will Smith, blah, blah. Yeah, there needs to be some consequences, but it needs to be measured, and then we can all move forward and everything will be good. But with Ezra, they are exhibiting a pattern of behavior, an attitude and a pattern of behavior. He went into somebody's bedroom and threatened to murder them. To murder them.
After they bailed him out of jail.
After they bailed them out of jail. Threatened to murder them. And this is the night after threatening, being belligerent, going on stage and pulling something from a young woman's hand, lunging physically, which I don't know what Ezra thinks they're going to do. They're a 5 foot whatever, 110 pound soaking wet pipsqueak, but whatever. And for me personally, it's, as a fan, it's especially upsetting because for years I have completely defended Ezra Miller as a performer. I love Ezra Miller's portrayal as Flash. I will defend their portrayal as Flash forever. I think they make a great Flash. I really do. But I said yesterday, it's too late to replace Ezra as Flash. It's too late. You can't do it. The movie's done. It's in the can. It's finished. Yeah, I think you can redo the movie now. I'm telling you right now, Warner Brothers won't. They won't. But I think there has to at least be discussions around Warner Brothers right now. Ezra Miller can no longer be our Flash. I don't care if the movie's done or not. This is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern of behavior. And Ezra Miller needs help. Ezra needs help. And until some people, particularly those who are working with them and employing them, step up and say, and show them this behavior we do not accept, condone, and we don't tolerate it, you're out. Until Warner Brothers does that, I don't know that Ezra's going to take seriously that they actually really do need some serious professional help. And I'm concerned about Ezra's health, and I'm concerned about Ezra's future if somebody doesn't do something to intercede. And while yesterday I was saying I don't think you reboot Flash or scrap what you've done, today I'm second guessing that. I'm thinking maybe it is time to pull him. And dear heavens, I feel so bad for the filmmakers of Fantastic Beasts because it is really too late to do anything about that. They got this coming out, but they're being very shh. They're not featuring Ezra in any of the new ads that have been coming out the last couple of days, any of the new spots at all. And look, at the end of the day, this is a sad situation. It's sad. But something's got to be done at this point. And I mean, look, even a number of weeks ago, and I promised myself I'd never bring this up again, but I will now anyway. A couple of weeks ago, Ezra Miller got on social media and put up this very odd video talking about going to some town to find the Ku Klux Klan members there and basically calling for the formation of death squads to go into a town and go kill people. To which I said, I don't know. Maybe individual citizens shouldn't be getting online on social media and calling for death squads. To which some fucking morons online goes, John, are you defending? Are you taking the side of the Ku Klux Klan? No, you fucking idiot, I'm not. I'm taking our side. That you can't do that. It was yet another sign of somebody who needs help. And that's where we're at. So, Rob, let me throw this over to you. Yesterday's story was bad enough. Now we're hearing about this, like threatening people's lives, saying, I'm going to bury your slut wife, and stealing things of theirs. Clearly he needs help. What's your first impression hearing this story, and what can Warner Brothers do at this point, if anything?
Well, I think that clearly something is going on with him personally. I mean, this is not normal behavior. I mean, I think back to, Robert Downey Jr. waking up in someone else's house, clearly in the grips of addiction. And it seems to me that Ezra Miller is dealing with either emotional issues, addiction issues, personality issues, or all three at the same time. And is he on some kind of cross-country odyssey that's taking him from one end of the country all the way to Hawaii? I mean, it's odd to me that he runs into a couple and is staying with them. That's weird. I don't know. That weirdness is probably a lot weirder than we would have been led to believe. It's not just like, hey, come stay with us. It was weird. The whole thing is weird. And I hope that at this point, the people, his handlers, I mean, he's in 2 giant Marvel movies. He's got representation. Not that everybody, DC movies. 2 big movies at Warner Brothers, The Flash and then Fantastic Beasts. He has a team of people representing him. He's got lawyers. He's got agents. He's got managers. He's got family. He's got people that clearly need to intercede on his behalf. Because it's really, I mean, Warner Brothers has to deal with the fallout as a company, but it's really not Warner Brothers' place to step in and they've got to, yes, they can demand public apologies and all that, but they're a corporation. They're publicly held. It's not their responsibility to go make sure somebody gets into rehab. It's the people that are closest to Ezra Miller that have to intercede. The company can intercede, of course, but they're in a really precarious situation themselves, and their job is to put out movies. Their job is not to help people get into the rehab or whatever it is that they need. They can't do that. That's just what they don't have.
But I would counter that, because what you're saying is literally true. It is not their job to put Ezra Miller in rehab. I don't disagree with that. What I would say, though, is that by not enforcing any consequences, they're actually enabling Ezra Miller and making it less likely that Ezra would ever feel the need to go.
I totally agree with that. I mean, and Hollywood has always been lax when it comes to enforcing consequences,
unless your name's James Gunn.
Well, there you go.
Or Johnny Depp.
I mean, but I do, yes, but I do think that. And what's interesting is, this kind of behavior is worse, really. I mean, he's threatening people, like literally threatening bodily harm, calling for people to be murdered, literally threatening human beings, like, I'm going to bury you and your slut wife. Like, what is that? What's going on there? And this action needs to be taken. And I mean, they've got hundreds of millions of dollars riding on this, Warner Brothers does. And you would think they'd be the first people to get out in front and at least try and mitigate the damage.
Chris, I mean, look, it's granted, it is easy for somebody like me to play Monday morning quarterback and go, see, I told you back when this happened before and you didn't do anything. They were like, shh, just don't talk about it. It's easy for me to do that now. Hindsight is 20/20. But as you see what's now happening, what's been transpiring with Ezra lately, what are your first impressions? And then, what do you see Warner Brothers doing, if anything? Or do they just employ the same tactic they did 2 years ago of, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil? I mean, what do you think is going to happen here?
I mean, this is wild in light of what we were talking about yesterday, too. And I hope that after that discussion, everyone does realize why we were taking this seriously, because a lot of times these are patterns of behavior and they escalate, and people can end up dead from these terrible, terrible choices. And it's not a laughing matter. And it's something very, very serious.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that Warner Brothers does something about this. We've seen other people who have had things that have gone awry in their personal lives lose positions in film franchises that Ezra's part of, and other people who haven't. Let's call a spade a spade. There has been some picking and choosing of how that's happened.
Oh, yeah.
Ezra Miller, I also want to talk about, a lot of people in the chat are asking about any kind of mental health issue happening here.
Yeah.
And while that can be an explanation to something, that is absolutely not an excuse. Also, that perpetuates the narrative that people who are neurodivergent or suffer from any kind of mental illness are dangerous. They're not.
That's a great point.
They absolutely are not. I have several members of my family who have bipolar disorder, and no one has ever been threatened by them or had anything horrible like that happen to them. There are people who are suffering with that in their own terms, but they've never had any kind of violent act happen. So I want that narrative to just be shut down, because that's not okay. What seems to be the problem here is Ezra is going through something with alcohol use, and they have a lot of rage issues, it seems, and that all needs to be taken care of. There's a lot of demons happening here, and it is not all right to perpetuate this level of violence. All this week, I feel like we've been talking about consequences. There are consequences to your actions. There have to be. And by continuing to sweep this under the rug, it further perpetuates another narrative that it does not matter if you are a certain type of privileged human being, if you act violently towards people and I'm going to say it, there is a level of additional aggression towards this woman by calling her a slut. And I'm not okay with that. And chat, maybe you're going to do but there's also a man here. And yes, there is. I understand that multiple human beings are being harmed in this situation. But man, oh man, is that something that I am clinging to as someone who has been threatened, who has had that word thrown against them, who has had a person make them feel, oh my gosh, am I going to get killed in this moment by this person? A lot of you might not have felt that, but I guarantee you almost every woman in your life, unfortunately, has had that moment happen to her. 3 out of 5 women are sexually assaulted. I mean, this is a terrible, terrifying situation. And the fact that they are using this level of aggression is very, very upsetting. I very, very much feel for the man in the situation too, obviously. I just want them to get the help they need.
Yeah.
I mean, look, this is obviously, we prefer around here talking about things that are fun. I want to talk about Moon Knight, and I want to talk about these fun things. But this is, and I always avoid the TMZ garbage, but when it directly impacts the entertainment we watch, we have the new Fantastic Beasts coming out in now days. We have this Flash movie we've all been excited for. Aaron, let me ask you, you weren't here for our conversation on this yesterday, but we hear about these incidents, both the one from yesterday, today. What's your first impression, and what should or can Warner Brothers do, and how could this impact, do you think, the entertainment that the rest of us have been waiting to see? What's your take on this?
Well, yeah, I think that Warner Brothers made a huge misstep years ago in not putting some sort of sanctions, if you want to call them that, because you're right, Rob. It is, or sorry, I forget who said it, but it is not the responsibility of a studio to get someone the help that they need. It is the responsibility of the people around them. And maybe it's not even necessarily the responsibility of that person's agent. At the end of the day, it is solely the responsibility of the person in the center of those rings.
Yes.
And if the person in the center of those rings is Ezra Miller. And Ezra, whatever is going on with him, even if he has some sort of mental health issues, even if he has some sort of personal problems, he is exacerbating his own issues by continuing to go out in public and get intoxicated, whether it's by alcohol, drugs, or a combination of the two. He does have a choice of whether or not he chooses to do that. And I also understand addiction. I very much understand it. But he also has the resources financially and otherwise to get help. And, I also want to say, so there's just a lot going on here. And with Warner Brothers, they had an opportunity when we saw the previous behavior that was totally excused by so many people, including all over the internet. Oh, it was fake. Oh, she was just trying to get attention. Oh, it's not real, blah, blah, blah. All these people that were trying to defend this behavior that I promise you was not in a vacuum. And I know it wasn't in a vacuum because it is now publicly a pattern of behavior, which tells me that it wasn't just the incident that happened in Europe, and it wasn't just the incident that happened in Hawaii, but it was also so many incidences, probably when he was in the middle of filming The Flash that they covered up, probably when he was in the middle of filming other projects that they covered up. I mean, it happens all the time. Okay? I mean, I remember hearing stories from a coworker of mine who worked on whatever the show with David Caruso back in the day.
CSI?
No, the first one.
NYPD Blue.
NYPD Blue,
right.
about him throwing chairs at people and coming into work like totally fucked up. But nobody talked about that. It all got covered up because of ratings and because of all this other kind of stuff. And we see the same thing happen in politics, and we see the same thing happening in the world of entertainment, and we see the same thing happening in the world of business. And that is one of the things that I also want to talk about is it is not the fact that Ezra is Hollywood, okay? I have a cousin who I no longer speak to who's just a rich redneck in South Louisiana, and he is banned from the entire city of Grand Isle, Louisiana for acting exactly like Ezra Miller. And he's not famous, he's moderately wealthy, but he's just an asshole who has a problem. And no matter how many people try to help him, he refuses to get help. And so when Warner Brothers says, hey, we know that this person is problematic, and we're not going to go to his representation and say, listen, here's the deal. We have another movie and he's supposed to be the Flash, but we will replace him in a second if you do not get him accountable and get him into a program. I mean, you bring up Robert Downey Jr. Like, look at all the things that when Robert Downey Jr., I mean, it's not that nobody wanted to work with Robert Downey Jr. Plenty of people wanted to work with him. He couldn't get insured. No Bond company would insure a single film that hired him because they were like, we don't know if he's going to show up for work tomorrow. Ezra Miller is a liability. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So even if people do want to work with him, even if he's the most talented actor on the planet, it doesn't matter because he's no longer going to be able to be insured. No one is. That's the reason why Lindsay Lohan lost her career. It wasn't because people didn't want to work with her. She's massively talented. She couldn't get insured. I know that. I was her massage therapist at the time. That was that previous job. And I was there. I saw all of the crazy behavior. And so that's what's happening with Ezra Miller. And if Warner Brothers had stepped in when this behavior was first going on and said, we're not going to let him come back in the sequel. Hey, look at how many Spider-Mans we've had. Does anybody give a shit that it's different actors? No, because nobody's watching Ezra Miller. They're watching The Flash.
Right. The problem, of course, that they face, though, right now is that...
That's the Flash they have.
Oh, yeah, this is the Flash they have, and they've already got a film shot and in the can that comes out in 2023, unlike the Spider-Man situations, which hey, listen, I understand. I get it. That's a tough problem.
I'm not a fan of this,
but
but this might be a situation where you just got to do a deep fake.
maybe.
Or-
Or just recast and reshoot.
Yeah, maybe there's a reason they did push it as deep into 2023 as they
I didn't
I mean,
even
look
think about
at
that.
I mean, look
Maybe that's
at
part
look
of
at
it.
all the money in the world. I mean, that movie was about to come out. Boom. Oh, wow, Kevin Spacey is a rapist. I guess we're just going to reshoot all of his scenes with
That-
Christopher
Yeah, but
Plummer.
that was with a small role.
You're right.
This is
It
the
was
star
with
of the movie, but
right, but at
it
the
might be
same
time to
time,
recast
but
it.
at the same time, I wonder if you go through the actual film. Obviously, I have no way of knowing this. If you go through the film and you actually look at the clip that has his face, his full face, maybe the back of his face you can show. Maybe, I mean, you can use all of his action stuff. Anything where you're not seeing, I mean, all the coverage of the other actors, you don't have to reshoot. I don't know, and especially for a movie for a company like Warner Brothers, reshooting all of his scenes, with another actor might be the way to go, because he's clearly a liability. And he also, how is he going to do press? How are you going to do press
Right.
for The Flash with Ezra
that's a big
Miller?
problem.
You can't. And the press alone is millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. So you're just not, I mean, his face is going to be on billboards and bus stops and, all over the world. You can't have that.
Yeah, you can hide him a little bit in the Fantastic Beasts promo.
Yeah.
You cannot hide Flash from a Flash movie.
It is actually more fiscally sound to replace his face in the movie with another actor and push it a month and do a
It
whole.
would take more than a month.
Well,
Well,
yeah. I mean, but they've pushed the movie. It's a year away.
Yeah, it doesn't come until 2023.
I mean,
Well, they have plenty of
There's
time.
a reason
yeah,
why
I don't think Ezra Miller comes out in this movie.
guys, listen, we're not going to pretend that this is a simple issue or whatever, and it's complex and it sucks. It absolutely sucks. And I say this as somebody who really likes Ezra Miller's portrayal as Barry Allen. But I mean, clearly something's got to be done here. The question is for you guys. What do you think about this whole situation? What are the first impressions you have? And then more importantly, maybe what does Warner Brothers need to do here? Do you think they're going to take the same approach they did last time of just don't, see no evil, hear no evil, say no evil, shh, let's just not talk about it and hope that the audience gets distracted again? Are they, like Aaron was saying, has Ezra become a liability to this whole thing? Should they take extreme measures? No measures at all? What do you guys think is going to happen here? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.